This is just a quick follow-up to the Andre Ward video I uploaded earlier on today. And I'm going to respond to a couple of the comments that were left in the comment section by two different individuals who are very critical of Andre Ward and who took exception to me saying that Andre Ward cleaned out the 168-pound super middleweight division. Let me put it like this. Did Vladimir Klitschko clean out the heavyweight division? I would say yes, he did. There was a point in time, a period in time, over a few years, where Vladimir had beaten just about all the major contenders. And there was nobody on the horizon who looked like a threat to him. During that period, you could say Vladimir Klitschko had cleaned out the division. Now, since then, a new crop of young heavyweights has emerged. Tyson Fury came on the scene and beat Klitschko. And you've also got people like Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder, Joseph Parker. You got Luis Ortiz. So, if Vladimir was to beat Fury in a rematch, you've still got all these other guys out there. Does that mean that Vladimir didn't clean out the division in the past? No, he did clean out the division during a certain period of time. But because he's been at the top for so long, now we've got these new crop of contenders and now there are viable opponents for him again. The same goes for Andre Ward. There was a period of time when Andre Ward did clean out the 168-pound super middleweight division. When he won the Super 6, he beat Arthur Abraham, he beat Mikhail Kessler, he beat Carl Froch. They were the best guys in the division. The only guy he didn't face was Lucian Bute. And I'll get onto that in a second. He was supposed to fight Andre Dirrell in the tournament, but Dirrell pulled out of the tournament after the Arthur Abraham fight. Dirrell said he had some type of brain injury and Dirrell was inactive for several years after that. So at that point in time, Dirrell wasn't a viable contender because he was saying he had a brain injury and he pulled out of the Super 6 and was inactive. So that guy's a non-factor then during that period when Ward was dominant. James DeGale was a non-factor during that period when Ward was reigning supreme. He'd lost to George Groves. Then he was fighting on obscure undercards and shows in shopping centers and stuff like that on Mick Hennessy. When he was promoted by Mick Hennessy. So he wasn't a major player at world level when Ward was at the top of his game, when he was fighting the likes of Chad Dawson and all those guys. DeGale wasn't a factor then. So during the period which we're talking about where Ward cleaned out the division, Dirrell was a non-factor. DeGale was a non-factor. The only person who was a factor during that period was Lucian Bute. That's one thing I can say. Yes, he did refuse to fight Lucian Bute, and his reasoning for not fighting Bute is he said, well, look, I was in the Super 6. I took on all the best fighters in the division, and you've been out here fighting cupcakes, and you expect to just get a straight crack at me when I'm the one that's been putting the work in? No, you go and fight some decent people first, and then come back and fight me. And obviously, Bute went and fought Carl Froch, a guy that Andre Ward had beaten. He didn't make it past Froch. So you can criticize Ward for not fighting Bute, no problem with that. And you can say, okay, well, yeah, he cleaned out the division apart from Bute. But then when Froch beat Bute, all of a sudden it was like, okay, who can Andre Ward fight now? Because he's already beaten Froch, he's beaten Kessler, he's beaten Abraham. So this is why people were saying, well, Ward is the king of the division. He's cleaned out the division. There was Bute there, but one of the guys that Ward has already beat just beat Bute anyway. And obviously he tried to get that rematch with Froch. The WBA even mandated the rematch with Froch. Ward said that he would go to England to fight Froch as long as it weren't in Nottingham, because he did win the first fight, and the first fight wasn't in Oakland, it was in Atlantic City. So it was a more than fair compromise to say to Froch, look, okay, I'll fight you in England for the rematch, but it can't be in Nottingham. So yeah, Ward did clean out the division during a certain period. Just as Klitschko cleaned out the division during a certain period. He didn't clean out the division forever. Nobody can clean out the division forever. Very few fighters anyway can clean out the division for the entirety of their careers. And as I say, towards the end of Ward's reign, during his hiatus, because obviously Ward had these issues with his former promoter, Dan Goosen, and he was inactive during that period. He wasn't really fighting. He certainly wasn't fighting anybody of note. Obviously found it difficult to do any type of deals with prominent fighters or anything like that because of the situation with Dan Goosen. And during that period of time, towards the end of that period of time, that's when James DeGale rose to prominence. That's when DeGale became a factor on the world stage. That's when Darrell rose to prominence again. Okay, so this has all happened after or towards the end of Andre Ward's reign at 168. The only thing you can really criticize him for was not fighting Bute. My whole thing on my channel is no fighter is below praise, no fighter is above criticism. That's the motto that I live by on this channel. But a lot of other people, they don't live by that. They're very hypocritical and very biased in terms of how they deal with different fighters. With Andre Ward, look at these individuals who are criticizing Ward in the comment section. Do you ever see them say anything good about Andre Ward? Ever? I'm telling you, do a Google search on YouTube with their YouTube username, Andre Ward, and just look at the comments that they leave on every video. They never say anything good about the guy. And when the guy has beaten the likes of Carl Froch, Kessler, and all these other people, Chad Dawson, when he's done all these things, you at least expect some type of objectivity from these people. You at least expect, okay, well, let me give him praise for this and praise for that and praise for the other. But you don't get that from these people. It's only ever criticism. It's only ever bashing him and downplaying all his achievements and everything he's done. That's not objective. That's biased. And when you behave like that, you really have to question your motives. This one individual, this World Citizen, a guy called World Citizen who left a comment, particularly him. I mean, this guy clearly is praying for Andre Ward's downfall, and there's nothing objective at all about his approach. He hates Ward. He wants to diminish everything Ward has done, and that's the end of it. There's no giving him praise for any of the good things that he's done. There's none of that. Never will be from this guy. And I can't respect that type of attitude. I just can't. Because I always give people praise where praise is due. Of course I'll criticize people. I'll criticize Ward. I also give praise where it's due. I've been heavily critical of Vladimir Klitschko on this channel. But I've also praised him for things that are praiseworthy. I've always said that Vladimir Klitschko is tremendously talented. I just made a video about Vladimir Klitschko, in my opinion, being a harder puncher than Mike Tyson. I've always said he's fantastically talented. After the Kubrat Pulev fight, I was singing Vladimir Klitschko's praises to the roof. It's called being objective, people. You might want to try it rather than having these disturbing motivations for being obsessively critical of certain fighters. These people who are so critical of Ward, as I say, you look at what they say about Kessler and Froch. They seem to speak far more highly of Kessler and Froch than they do of Ward. Go look at the things they're criticizing Ward for. And then, for example, go look at Golovkin. Go look at Kovalev. Go look at other fighters. And see if they apply that same level of critique to those guys as they do to Ward. They don't. It's disturbing stuff. It is what it is. So, yeah, Andre Ward did clean out the 168-pound division, apart from Lucian Bute, who lost to Carl Froch, and therefore the perception at the time was, well, he's beaten everybody. Even Bute is a non-factor now, so there's nobody else for Ward to fight. That was the perception at a certain period of time. Okay, so it is what it is. Anyway, people, it's your boy Hatman, I'm out.